The Labour right wing are in a frenzy. Tom Watson has produced a dodgy dossier which supposedly shows how Trotskyists, particularly ourselves in the Socialist Party, have been twisting the arms of young people to convince them to support Jeremy Corbyn. Obviously, it's patronising rubbish. Hundreds of thousands of people have signed up to support Jeremy Corbyn. We've seen the biggest demonstrations taking place in his support, the biggest left rallies, left meetings that have taken place for decades in many cities up and down the country. This is now the biggest political movement in Europe. And they're not doing it because anybody told them to do it. They're doing it because they're fed up of austerity. They're fed up of a country where wages have fallen by 10% since 2008, where a secure job or a decent home that you know that you're going to be able to keep have become things of the past for a whole generation. And people are supporting Jeremy Corbyn because he offers something different. And that is really what frightens Tom Watson and co. They are frightened by this mass movement that has developed, which has an open, inclusive approach and is clearly opposed to austerity. For decades in Westminster, the Parliamentary Labour Party have lived in a cosy bubble. They have implemented privatisation, tuition fees, cuts in public services. They've gone to war. In the course of doing all those things, they've lost 5 million votes for Labour. But their cosy little world has been largely undisturbed. And now it's been shaken up by this mass movement, which is no longer prepared to accept their policies. And so the party, which, let's remember, Thatcher said about the Labour Party under Blair, that it was her greatest achievement because it was a party that could be relied on to act in the interests of the 1%, the elite. That is now under threat as a result of the pro-Corbyn movement that has taken place. A key moment in the move to the right of the Labour Party was when we, then the militant tendency, now the Socialist Party, were expelled. Whatever's being said now, we were not expelled because we were organised. We were expelled because we stood on a clear socialist programme and we were prepared to fight for working class people. We led the movement, 18 million strong, where people refused to pay the poll tax, and as a result of that, the poll tax was abolished and the Iron Lady, Maggie Thatcher, was reduced to iron filings. Meanwhile, right-wing Labour councillors were jailing people who were unable to afford to pay the poll tax. We also led a movement in Liverpool. We played a leading role in the Labour Council in the 1980s there. Now, we're being smeared, saying that we don't care about winning elections. But Liverpool City Council didn't just win elections. It won them repeatedly and on increased majorities. And why did it do that? It did it because it said, we won't accept cuts. We won't accept austerity. We are going to stand up for the people of the city. And the people of the city stood alongside us. And as a result of that, we were able to win an extra £60 million from Maggie Thatcher, from her government. And that meant Liverpool City Council built 5,000 council houses, 6 new leisure centres, 6 new nurseries, new schools, and a whole number of other measures in the interests of working class people in Liverpool. We now have an opportunity, with a refounded Labour Party, to fight for those kind of anti-austerity policies, not just in one city, but on a national basis. The first priority, of course, is to make sure that Jeremy is re-elected and the coup is defeated. But that will be a beginning and not an end. Because we all know, from everything that they've said, that the Blairites, the right wing, are not going to accept the democratic decision of the membership to re-elect Jeremy Corbyn as leader. They're going to continue to go to war. They're threatening to split away. The worst possible response to that would be to attempt to compromise with the Blairites. These people are the real interests in the Labour Party. They represent the interests of big business, the 1%, whereas the Labour Party was founded originally by the trade union movement to be a party for the working class, for the majority. And we should say, if they threaten to split away, let them go. We're better off without them. Beyond that, then we should refound the Labour Party on a clear anti-austerity programme and say to those Labour MPs, unless you're prepared to pledge to vote for that programme in Parliament, you can't have the Labour whip. Because we don't want Labour MPs anymore who are voting for war, for austerity, for benefit cuts and all the other things those people have voted for. And yes, that means initially we could have a party with a smaller number of MPs, but 30 or 40 clearly anti-austerity MPs would be far better than 232, the majority of whom vote for cuts, privatisation and the rest of it. And such a party would be electorally popular. Let's be clear, when the Blairites say we've got to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn because we think he's unelectable, that's not what they're worried about. They're worried that he is electable, that he could win a general election on his anti-austerity programme, and they're right. If Jeremy stands for mass council house building, for a £10 an hour minimum wage, we would also say he should stand clearly for free education, as he did when he first stood to be leader of the Labour Party. He should stand for nationalisation of the steel industry, of the energy companies, under democratic working class control. That programme would be enormously popular. Of course, the big business economists say it's not realistic. David Blanchflower has said that Jeremy and John are not prepared to accept the realities of capitalism and the modern day market. In our view, in the Socialist Party, the best answer to that is to say, you're right. We don't accept the reality of modern day markets because they mean misery for millions. And we would say that means putting forward a programme for nationalisation under democratic working class control of the big companies and banks that dominate the economy in order to begin to build a socialist society, a democratic society for the 99% rather than for the 1%. But in a refounded Labour Party, we can discuss and debate what are the best means to implement a socialist policy to improve the lives of the majority, to transform society. Because we need also to organisationally transform the Labour Party, to open it up, to democratise it, to encapsulate the spirit of the movement that is being mobilised in Jeremy Corbyn's support. We would say that means building a federal Labour Party, saying to all forces in society, if you're prepared to sign up to this anti-austerity programme, then you are welcome to join us in a Labour coalition, if you like, an anti-austerity coalition, involving the Socialist Party, the trade unionist and socialist coalitions, inviting the Greens to sign up to such an anti-austerity programme. That would be an enormously popular idea. It would also mean, in our view, restoring the role of the trade unions, who founded the Labour Party, and its original federal constitution gave enormous weight to the democratic voice of the trade unions, which today represent millions of people, more than any other democratic organisation in Britain, and yet have been marginalised by the Blairites. So their rights should be restored. We can create a democratic and a socialist Labour Party that will offer a real voice for working class people in Britain.